Not every battle comes from strangers. Sometimes the greatest challenge to your calling comes through the voices you love the most. The people closest to you often carry the greatest influence, not because they are your enemies, but because their words reach places that no outsider can reach. The real question is not whether someone belongs to your family. The real question is whether the influence they carry is leading you toward the purpose God has placed inside you or quietly pulling you away from it. Every person who desires to fulfill a divine assignment must learn one lesson early. Love is essential, but discernment is equally essential. Wisdom does not reject people. Wisdom evaluates influence. Spiritual maturity is not measured by how loudly someone speaks about faith, but by how consistently they protect peace, truth, integrity, and purpose. There are seasons when affection must be balanced with wisdom, compassion with discernment, and kindness with healthy boundaries. Many people lose years of progress not because they lack talent or opportunity, but because they allowed the wrong voices to shape their decisions. Today is not about creating suspicion. It is about awakening discernment. It is about learning to recognize influences that weaken conviction, cloud judgment, and distract the heart from its divine assignment. Purpose is too valuable to leave unprotected. One of the greatest principles of spiritual maturity is learning to discern influence instead of merely judging intentions. A person may sincerely love you and still unknowingly encourage choices that limit your growth. Good intentions do not always produce good outcomes. Some people genuinely desire your comfort while heaven is calling you toward growth. Some want to protect you from risk while your purpose requires courageous obedience. Others encourage you to settle because they fear change more than they value transformation. This is why wisdom must become your constant companion. Discernment asks a different question. Instead of asking, "Do they care about me?" it asks, "What direction does their influence produce in my life? Does it increase faith, peace, discipline, integrity, and purpose? Or does it create confusion, fear, compromise, and hesitation?" Mature believers refuse to measure relationships only by emotion. They examine fruit. Every influence produces fruit over time. If the fruit consistently weakens your character or distracts you from your calling, wisdom invites you to make adjustments without becoming bitter. Love remains, respect remains, kindness remains, but boundaries become stronger because purpose deserves protection. The first sign is repeated discouragement whenever you begin pursuing the assignment placed on your life. Notice the pattern rather than isolated moments. Whenever you step toward growth, new opportunities, greater responsibility, deeper faith, or meaningful service, discouraging voices suddenly become louder. You hear statements that question your ability, minimize your dreams, exaggerate possible failures, or suggest that you should simply remain where life feels comfortable. Sometimes these words come from fear rather than malice. Family members may worry about your future, your finances, or your reputation. Yet repeated discouragement slowly trains the mind to expect failure instead of possibility. Kingdom thinking refuses to let fear become the loudest voice. Purpose always requires movement beyond comfort. Growth demands courage. Every significant assignment requires stepping into unfamiliar territory. Wisdom does not respond with anger or arguments. Wisdom responds by strengthening conviction through prayer, reflection, learning, and consistent action. Respect those who express concern, but never surrender your assignment simply because someone else cannot yet see what has been placed inside your heart. Healthy encouragement strengthens responsibility instead of feeding fear. Protect your vision by surrounding yourself with voices that challenge you toward excellence rather than convince you to remain small. The second sign is constant pressure to compromise your values or convictions. Every person eventually encounters moments when relationships demand a choice between acceptance and integrity. You may be encouraged to ignore honesty because everyone does it. You may be pressured to abandon discipline because commitment appears inconvenient. You may be asked to remain silent when truth should be spoken with wisdom and humility. Compromise rarely arrives as a dramatic event. It usually begins with small decisions that slowly reshape character. The kingdom principle is clear. Character always outweighs convenience. Integrity creates stability because it keeps the heart aligned with truth regardless of changing circumstances. When pressure to compromise becomes a recurring pattern, the response is neither condemnation nor self-righteousness. Instead, it is quiet consistency. Continue living according to your convictions without attacking those who disagree. Let your life become your strongest testimony. Respectfully decline what violates your principles while continuing to demonstrate love, patience, humility, and honor. Boundaries built upon integrity preserve both relationships and purpose far better than emotional arguments ever could. The third sign is manipulation through fear, guilt, or emotional control. Healthy relationships invite growth through mutual respect. Unhealthy patterns attempt to control decisions through emotional pressure. You may constantly feel responsible for another person's happiness. You may hear phrases that make you feel guilty whenever you prioritize your responsibilities or your calling. Fear may be used to convince you that every independent decision is selfish or disrespectful. Emotional manipulation quietly steals freedom because it replaces thoughtful decisions with reactions driven by anxiety. Kingdom leadership rejects control while embracing responsibility. Mature people make decisions based on wisdom rather than emotional pressure. This does not mean becoming cold or distant. It means learning to distinguish compassion from unhealthy dependence. You can care deeply without surrendering your ability to make wise decisions. You can forgive generously without allowing manipulation to define your future. You can honor family while refusing to become imprisoned by unhealthy emotional patterns. Freedom begins the moment you recognize that love does not require abandoning wisdom. Genuine love creates space for growth, responsibility, and maturity instead of demanding constant control. The fourth sign is persistent influence that steals your peace, clarity, and confidence. Pay attention to what consistently happens after certain conversations or interactions. Do you leave feeling inspired to pursue purpose with greater excellence, or do you repeatedly leave feeling confused, anxious, discouraged, and uncertain? Peace is not the absence of challenges. Peace is the inner stability that allows wisdom to remain stronger than fear. When someone's influence continually clouds your judgment, drains your confidence, or distracts your attention from meaningful priorities, discernment calls for healthy adjustments. This is not an invitation to isolate yourself or reject loved ones. It is an invitation to become intentional about protecting your inner life. Your thoughts shape your decisions shape your habits shape your future. Therefore, guarding peace is not selfish, it is responsible stewardship. A clear mind makes wise decisions. A peaceful heart responds rather than reacts. Confidence rooted in truth remains steady even when criticism becomes loud. The strongest leaders protect their internal environment because they understand that lasting influence begins within. Discernment is essential because purpose always attracts competing influences. Every meaningful assignment requires clarity. Confusion delays progress. Fear weakens courage. Constant compromise erodes integrity. Emotional control limits freedom. Wisdom recognizes these realities without turning every disagreement into a spiritual conflict. Mature believers avoid suspicion while remaining alert. They refuse to label people as enemies simply because differences exist. Instead, they evaluate patterns, fruit, and direction. Boundaries preserve peace because they create healthy space for responsibility, respect, and growth. Truth liberates without producing bitterness. Forgiveness heals the heart without eliminating wisdom. You can release resentment while still making different choices. You can honor family while refusing unhealthy influence. You can remain compassionate while becoming more discerning. This balance reflects genuine maturity because it refuses both bitterness and naivete. Discernment protects destiny by ensuring that love and wisdom continue walking together instead of competing against one another. How then do we walk in freedom? First, strengthen your relationship with God daily. A clear spiritual foundation produces a clear perspective. Spend intentional time cultivating wisdom, prayer, reflection, and gratitude so that your identity is rooted in truth rather than in the opinions of others. Second, guard your thoughts and emotions carefully. Not every opinion deserves permanent residence in your mind. Evaluate ideas before accepting them. Replace fear with truth, confusion with clarity, and discouragement with disciplined hope. Third, establish healthy boundaries marked by love and respect. Boundaries are not walls built from anger. They are doors guided by wisdom. They determine what influence receives access to your heart and what influence must remain outside. Fourth, choose forgiveness without surrendering discernment. Forgiveness releases resentment. It does not eliminate responsibility or wisdom. Finally, remain committed to your purpose with steady faithfulness. Consistency defeats distraction. Discipline outlasts emotion. Peace grows where wisdom governs decisions. The more firmly you walk in purpose, the less power unhealthy influence possesses over your future. Declare this with unwavering confidence. My purpose is secure. My mind is clear. My peace is protected. I refuse to surrender my calling to fear, compromise, confusion, or unhealthy influence. Wisdom guides every decision I make. Truth establishes every step I take. My heart remains free from bitterness, yet firmly established in discernment. I choose love without abandoning wisdom. I choose forgiveness without abandoning truth. I choose peace without surrendering purpose. Every voice that encourages fear loses its authority over my thinking. Every pattern that promotes compromise loses its influence over my decisions. Every form of emotional control releases its grip because my identity is anchored in divine truth. I walk with courage. I walk with integrity. I walk with clarity. My future will not be defined by discouragement, but by faithful obedience. My character grows stronger. My discernment becomes sharper. My purpose becomes clearer. My peace remains guarded. My steps remain steady. My calling will not be compromised. My life will reflect wisdom, courage, disciplined faith, and unwavering commitment to the purpose for which I was created.